Hi, and welcome to another episode of PDA Dad UK. In this episode, I want to look at the situation some people find themselves in, the situation that we find ourselves in, where you have both a neurotypical and a neurodivergent child. We have two kids. I have a son who is 4, he's neurotypical, and I have a daughter who's 9, and she is neurodivergent. She's autistic, and she has a condition called pathological demand avoidance, which is where her anxiety is extremely high, and the way that she manages that subconsciously is to avoid demand. So if you ask her to do something, she's not going to do it. And it takes a lot of patience and a lot of hard work to work with that. But I want to look at the relationship between my daughter and my son and look at some of the challenges that we face with it, but more importantly, some of the things that really are a celebration. And we're going to look at sort of both those things. So we're going to start with the more challenging stuff, and then we're going to move on to the real positives. My daughter, as I say, we knew from a young age there were differences with her. Things weren't working the way we would have expected them to. Now, part of that, you sit there and go, oh, maybe I'm just a really crap parent. What am I doing wrong here? We went on parenting courses. We did a lot of things to try and address that. If we're doing something wrong, how do we fix this? How do we become better? Not a lot of it worked. And we got very frustrated when people would come back and tell me, oh, we tried the wall chart, it was wonderful. And we'd be there, yeah, no, she tore the wall chart up after day 1 because she was frustrated. Yeah, it really highlighted some issues for us in that. We knew from that sort of point that there was something different, and we soon came to the understanding that she's autistic, that she has a neurodivergent brain. Her brain processes things differently to the way the majority of the population does. And we have to work with that. And it's something that takes place on a subconscious level. We adapt our parenting style rather than trying to work on things which are being fruitless. You sort of naturally adapt. You know, the definition of insanity is, you know, doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result. So, you know, we've adapted things, and it seems like if you say to my daughter, go and tidy your room, you're going to have a problem, because it's a demand. The demand avoidance kicks in. She's going to have a meltdown. You're going to have a problem. So you learn to adapt it rather than go tidy your room. You can go up and you can say, well, what should we put away first? This is a bit of a mess, isn't it? What's the best thing? What would you like to put away first? Where should we put this? Should we put it on the shelf, or should it go on the desk? Do you want it over by your bed, on the windowsill? You give options, and then she picks, and it gives her that illusion of control while you're also achieving your objective, which is to get a cleaner room. That's just a very basic example, but it's something that we have to employ on a regular basis. We also have to have very, very strict boundaries and rules for her, which is almost counterintuitive. You think demand avoidance, boundaries, but she will push those boundaries. So if you don't have them set at the beginning, she will just walk all over you. So you have to, you know, that's not happening. That's where the line is. And then you have to deal with the meltdown or the behaviours that will come from that as they occur. But if you don't do that, then you're in trouble from the get-go. The result was that when my son was born, we naturally parented a certain way because we learnt that over 5 years. You know, obviously, you know, when he's a baby and into a toddler, it's not such a thing. But as he started to grow into more of a little boy, we had a very established way of parenting, and it took a friend of mine. I have a friend from Australia who's a teacher, and she's teaching in London now, and she came to visit us for a weekend, and she was good enough to take me aside at the end, and she said, look, you need to understand he's very different from her, and she said, it's totally natural. You've learned a certain way of parenting because you've had to, but you're actually going to have to kind of relearn that. For him, he can apply logic and reason where she can't. I talked about this in a previous video, the difference, the way the autistic brain works. You know, a brief recap of that is basically there's 3 parts of the brain. You've got the frontal part of the brain, which is where you process your logic. So we call that Spock. There's the middle of the brain, which is Kirk, and that's your emotional response. In the back of the brain, which is your, it's called the lizard, which is basically just a reptilian response. You eat, sleep, procreate, whatever, your immediate needs, fight, flight, or whatever. When a meltdown's occurring, when the anxiety is high, the front disengages. Spock goes out of the picture, and you just got emotion and instinct working together, and you get the meltdown that results. For my son, he doesn't have that. He actually can engage that logic as it's going on. So where we learn to sort of see the signs of, well, hang on, we're getting into this, and we go straight into a certain mode of dealing with the situation. With my son, I can actually take him, get on his level, look him in the eye and say, mate, this isn't how we do things. And here's why. I can actually bring that logic and reason into it really sensibly, and he can take it in and understand, even at the age of 4. And that's been really useful, because what we've had to do at some stage is explain to him that there is a difference. And it's a challenge that a lot of parents face when they have a neurotypical and a neurodivergent child, is the difference in what some kids are going to get away with, what others aren't, where there are different rules in place for the two different people, because there are different things going on. And it was really useful for me to be able to sit down with him, and this is what I ended up doing, and say, look, you've got to understand that for you and me, we're able to process things. When we're upset, we can still think it through, can't we? We can stop and go, how's this going to work? When you're making your Lego and it's not working the way you want, you don't just sit there and smash it on the floor, do you? You stop and you go, well, how's this going to work better? And he kind of took that on. He actually understood, yeah, I can take it, you know. I had to explain, your sister can't do that. Your sister, when she's upset, she can't apply that logic, and we have to accept that and understand it. So it's going to be hard sometimes, and it's not going to be fair all the time. But that doesn't change that we both love you the same, and that we want the best outcome for both of you. But there are going to be times that the rules are going to be different for her, and there are going to be times that the rules are going to be different for you. And that's something we have to work with. And I bring that up a lot with him. So I understand, you know, it's one conversation, he's not going to go, wow, with a complete understanding, of course, my sister's autistic and I'm not, so therefore, it's one of those things that I have to revisit quite often and just explain. Mate, we talked about this, haven't we? You know, your brain works differently to the way your sister's does. So, you know, for you and me, we can process it a certain way, and we can do that. She can't. That's coming useful specifically for when she's had more abusive moments, when she's in meltdown and she lashes out. She can swear, carry on, get in your face. She can be very aggressive and violent, to the point that I've had to be trained in safe restraint. I don't like it. It's not something I'm necessarily advocating for, but when it came down to the reality that, you know, the risk was that someone could get badly hurt, or I can keep her in a safe hold until she's able to, you know, move out from that. It's what was needed for our family. And so being able to explain, look, your sister doesn't mean these things when she says them. She's upset and angry, and she can't control it the same way you and I can. So she just blurts it out. And it's something that I just continually have to reinforce with him. But to his credit, he's really taken it on. And he's actually said it to me a couple of times, you know, she's just different to us, isn't she? Absolutely right. And that sort of brings me on to the more positive aspects of the relationship between the two. And it's something that's really come obvious to me over the last few weeks of being stuck in a house with the few of us just crammed in together. And I was dreading it when I found out this is how things were going to be, when it was all sort of hitting the news. I was concerned would probably be the most polite way to put it. Yeah, and it's been a lot easier than I had hoped, to be honest. It's actually, there have been the moments, but we've actually got through pretty well. And a lot of that's credit to my son and the way that he is patient and the way he does these things. He doesn't hold a grudge. So when we've had a meltdown, or we've had a moment of aggression, or a moment of just her being demanding in whatever way, he's very quick to, she'll come and say sorry, and that's to her credit. She will always in the end come and say sorry and recognise that that wasn't the way to behave. And to his credit, every time He's like, yeah, okay, no worries. And they go off and they'll play again. And it can be within minutes. He really doesn't hold a grudge, and it's one of those things that's going to really shape him to be a really decent human being. He's not going to hold things against people. He's going to be very forgiving, understanding, and a non-judgmental person. And you can see that in the way he deals with his friends at school now. You know, he's only started school this year, and he's got a fantastic group of friends. And one of the things that teachers have picked up on there and have been able to sort of feed back to me is that, he's really good at, he'll walk away. When there's a situation, he knows to walk away. And then he'll rejoin afterwards. And if he's had a conflict with a friend, it's very short-lived, and they'll sort it out really quickly. And a lot of that's down to the fact that he's learnt to do that as a result. And the love between them is one of those things that, as a parent, it warms you. They're siblings, and they're going to have squabbles. My brother and I used to have some real barneys, I got to say. That's something that's with all brothers and brothers, sisters and sisters, whatever the situation. But seeing over the last few weeks how they've really bonded. Today, they were both up in my daughter's bedroom. They were making dens. And they were up there out for a good couple of hours, just giggling, messing about, playing Roblox on tablets with each other, hiding in this den, having a good old ball with it, and really enjoying each other's company. And that's something that I really value for my daughter. She doesn't make friends very easily. She has friends at school, but there's no one that she sees outside of school. She finds maintaining, part of pathological demand avoidance is an inability to maintain friendships. They want them, but they'll sabotage them because they'll get upset, angry, and then people just don't want to have anything to do with that. And, they're easier people to be friends with. And so it can be a very isolating, lonely experience. But what she's got with my son is a friend for life, and he'll always be there for her, and vice versa, she'll always be there for him. She's very quick to defend him in any situation, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's more than I could have hoped for as a dad in many ways, because if anything were to happen to me or happen to my wife and we weren't there for them, it's good to know they've got each other. And as I say, for my daughter, that's a particularly comforting and wonderful thought, that he will be there for her, because he will be her advocate for whatever going forward, whatever challenges she faces. She's not just got me, she's not just got my wife, she has her brother, and he will be her best friend and strongest advocate for life. There are resources available if you're a parent and you've got a situation like ours with a neurotypical and a neurodivergent child. The National Autistic Society have lists on their web pages of books that are great for all ages to explain autism and being able to explain the differences to kids at a young age, so they can approach them from different ages. There's a list of books there, and they can be really useful tools. There are loads of social stories about which are great to use for that situation as well. I'm thinking of putting one together myself, so that may hit down the track somewhere. What I'd really like to do is hear from you guys, from any of you guys who have this situation where you've got kids who have the differences. How do you approach it? Have there been some successes that you've had in actually making breakthroughs in explaining it to your kids, the differences? Please do add it in the comments. Please do like and subscribe to this. The more people that do so, the wider circulation it gets. It's not I don't make any money from this. It's all about getting the message out that we need to be an accepting society of all types of people, and that's autistic or neurotypical or neurodivergent alike, no matter who you are. So please do that, and I will see you next time.